it's only fitting, I believe, Pam, that we announce that the registration window is now open for the Sexy Marriage Radio Getaway in 2025.
Yeah, exciting to think
which
about.
is just around the corner. 2025.
9 months away. Yeah.
Well, no, not the Getaway, but 2025.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, everything feels like it's flying by so fast.
Because everything is flying by so fast. But this year we're doing something a little different with the registration window, in the sense that from now, this week is when the registration opened, and you can find out more at smr.fm/getaway. But this year we're doing an early bird discount.
Oh, those people are getting up super early.
Well, you know,
they get 2 worms.
We've become morning people. So why not?
Maybe not by choice, but okay.
Why not celebrate early birds? But this gives you an extra $100 off the registration. So from now till the end of 2024. So on your birthday, December 31st is when that window closes. Okay. So if you register now, you get in at $575 for the registration, which is the cheapest. You're going to get a chance to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. It's in downtown Fort Worth, which we're super excited about, because downtown Fort Worth is such a great place.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things to do for your evenings and lunches and you name it. We'll start having some videos out there showing.
Yeah, we'll show you some of the places and the locations and areas that are cool to check out. But the other lovely thing about downtown Fort Worth is it's all walking distance largely. Yeah. There's some areas that are a little bit far, so you'd want an Uber, or if you flew in, you'd want a car. But once you get to downtown Fort Worth, where the hotel is located, you won't need a vehicle. Mm-mm. And so that's a great perk, because it just adds a different flavor to what you can do in the evenings, what you can do at lunches. Yeah. Because it's all right there with all kinds of character and the feel of one of the areas we love in Texas. And so we're hoping you'll come join us. smr.fm/getaway is where you can learn more. It's June 19th to the 21st of 2025. Really hope that you'll come see us. Yeah. And the other thing to be recognizing is all the people that take some time out every week to join us. So thanks for joining us. And we're so glad that you come here every week. And we want to have you as part of the conversation. And you can do that by calling the show, 214-702-9565, or feedback@sexymarriageradio.com is our email line that helps us set the stage of where we're going to go each and every week on the shows that we do. And we want your voices. And we're also even trying to help cultivate and create some call-in segments. And so if you're interested in a little more personal interaction that maybe becomes an episode, if nothing else, because you have the right of refusal after we talk and record. If you don't like the way it went or how it sounded, then you just got the benefit of having a conversation with me to help your specific situation. And so let us know that you're interested in that, and we'll set it up, because we often feel like the conversations we get to have about the content going on in the marriages of the nation, they're applicable to a lot of people.
Yeah, so they are.
Your voice being added to the equation helps spread the word of our mission, but it also helps other marriages. And that's what we're really all about. Yeah. So coming up today on the regular version, we've had some themes going on in our last several episodes of there's been these concepts and dynamics of power, if you will, of I want one thing and you don't. And so therefore there's this tension between us. And then we all make moves accordingly based on that tension, right? Because you, if there's in this example that I'm throwing together real quickly on the fly, if I'm wanting something when it comes to our sex life and you are absolutely no, but you haven't said absolutely no clearly, then we need to figure out how to view that better on each side of the equation. So I can see the moves you're making and I can see the moves I'm making, while at the same time you can see better the moves I'm making, as well as hopefully start to see the moves you're making. And so I'm assuming you're saying the more you put that out there in the open. Well, a lot of times I think better we get at we continually flounder around in these gridlock components of marriage because we don't see it clearly on each side of the equation. Right? Okay. I see what I want to see, not what I need to be seeing. And I mean that about myself and my spouse. And so we're going to unpack how do I see things more cleanly and then make moves accordingly, which then sets up the extended content today, which is deeper, longer, and there's no ads. And you can subscribe at smr.fm/academy. We're going to go into now, how do I make better moves? And it's not power moves that I get my way.
Okay.
It's instead, how do I make moves better based on what I'm seeing so that I get seen more cleanly and clearly about the desires I have, or the interests I have, or the wants I have. Because if you boil it all down, every single one of us are making moves. How do I just make better ones, as well as see the ones being made around me better? So all that's coming up right after this. Okay, so I was watching the setup of this and watching your face as I'm explaining this, and it seems a little convoluted out the gate.
Is my face that, like,
I'm never taking you to Vegas to play poker,
never,
baby.
Never. My face is that clean. Well, you had said, I see what I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Was a phrase you just used in the opening.
Right.
I see what I want to see. And I question that phraseology. I question that.
Okay. How so?
Because often what I see is the script that has been laid out in front of me based on our history.
Absolutely.
And I may not want to see that. I may not like what that script says. I don't like the wording of I see what I want to see. What I want to see is something different, not what I've mapped out from you in history. I think they want to see.
Okay. And this
phraseology is different than I'm seeing the map I have of my spouse because this is what they always do.
Right. Okay. So this is all right. And this is where it becomes so complicated when you're talking about trying to frame a dynamic that plays out in marriages, particularly all the more heavy when you're talking about gridlock. That's where it becomes even more impactful and stress-inducing and hard to deal with and address, right? Because you just brought up something I was not even thinking about that also exists.
Okay.
Where I'm thinking of it, just to kind of counter, to give another thread into how this gets complicated, is I see what I want to see was probably better stated. I see what I hope to see, because I'm going off of the framework from some of the shows we've done of a husband that was wanting his wife to be more reciprocating when it came to oral sex in their marriage. It's something he thoroughly enjoys, and that's a component of it. That's a factor, and it's true. But he also wants it in return. And that's a component of it, and that's a factor, and that's true. And so both of those plus many others exist simultaneously in this thing.
Yeah.
Because none of it is one thing or the other. It's always multiple things. So her moves, the way he had framed it in the email, was she had even brought up, if we would do this more, then this will likely happen. And so what he's hoping and wants to see is that's actually what will happen. But her behaviors are showing, I'm just using words to pawn you off and not have to actually face this, which then brings up what you're bringing up of history shows, wait, I don't know if I really see change here. I don't know if I see a growth that I'm hoping would happen on how you impact or how you address these things. And so all of this is at play. And I want to frame it this way, where this becomes the most troublesome is on high meaning situations.
All right.
Okay. That's the best way to kind of start talking about, so we get a better view and are clearer of, okay, that's what compounds the stress and the gridlock.
Because of the meaning behind whatever it is.
Because of high meaning situations and encounters.
And we have to, I think we have to go back to define when we talk about high desire, low desire. This may have high meaning to me, but it's not a big meaning to you. Are these things that are high meaning to both of you?
No, that's where it starts to become such the playground of trouble. And then the way we think about it is why I don't see things clearly. And I then just start reacting more from my lizard brain, which is just the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn reactions, is because it's a high meaning situation, I get stress that comes back at me, or it's already filled with stress because of the meaning associated with it. So therefore I'm regressing in how I'm approaching it.
Okay.
I'm not functioning well as it unfolds. And so just some examples of high meaning situations, just in general of life. You can think of it as a lot of times families can go nuts at births, a newborn.
Okay.
You got the in-laws to come in, and there's different meanings associated on what a newborn's supposed to be and how it's supposed to go and what they're supposed to get and what's the ritual. So now you got major conflict. Or a death is one. Funerals.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been stories, if you look throughout the archives of newspapers, fist fights that take place at funeral homes because somebody showed up that, I can't believe you came to that. I'm like, why would I not? And now it's all these long undercurrent seated issues just come up.
Sure.
In these situations, dealing with in-laws, dealing with weddings, these are all high meaning situations just at face value. Because think of how many different meanings there are on a wedding.
Right. Well, all those examples you just gave are involving also people outside of just your immediate marriage,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're talking about all this family stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's so common for there to just end up being stress and conflict anyway.
Right.
When you've got extended family involved.
So then drill that down into married life. And that's where you heard, I don't know if you've heard this adage, but when you go to bed with your spouse, there's actually 6 people in that bed.
Because of how they were raised.
Because their parents and your parents are there.
Yeah, because
metaphorically speaking. Because of how you have approached life has been impacted and shaped by your family of
by
origin.
all those people.
And so it just gets crowded, and all of that makes it a whole lot more fraught with all kinds of issues, because high meaning situations actually are incredibly exposing of ourselves. Not handling it well, I'm off balance. And if I feel like I have to continue a dialogue within it, I usually will wind up even more regressed, more poor functioning. And then it's just feelings and emotions or logic. It's not a true, what do I really think and feel about this? Mm-hmm. It's I pull away or I just flood.
Well, so it seems those, I guess I want to pull in examples that are just the couple.
Okay.
As opposed to extended family, certainly a stressor for couples. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are listening here with, I guess, I don't know where I'm going with that.
Okay, let's go with this, though. I think I can thread that needle that you're setting up.
Okay.
That there's an element of when I'm having to confront you about something that's going on, and confronting is, I don't know if I necessarily like that word, but we're having to confront a situation between us that we've co-created.
Yeah. There you go.
If you will.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me, unknowingly, until I'm more clear about the dynamic and myself within it, to confront you while at the same time seeing patterns of your parents and your family. Of like, oh, well, that's just what you guys do. Because it helps it frames my map of you.
Okay.
Right. And so all of that comes at play, and I need to get better, just to kind of pivot into where I wanted to go with this for this segment. I need to get better at recognizing, okay, what am I seeing in how you react and respond to things, right? Because if I'm making a move on you, and just to put it at face value, a move is simply, in our conversation, I'm trying to get you onto an idea or off of an idea. That's all it is. So it's not a manipulation. It's not covert. It's just a clean, everybody as in the human race makes moves. Classic example is you walk into a restaurant, you place your order. That's a move.
This is what I want.
Right. I would like the number 3.
Okay.
With an unsweet tea. Right. That's my Chick-fil-A order.
There you go. There you go.
But it's just, that's a move. It's socially acceptable in that situation, but we're also doing it in every situation of life because we're trying to create things or want things.
Okay.
So when I'm making moves, a lot of times what I will try to prepare for ahead of time is, how's Pam going to respond to this? what are her reactions going to be? Right? Because I know, and that's what you started the show with.
Yeah, we have a map. We have a map.
We're usually smart enough to realize, okay, if I come at it this way, history has shown not going to land well. So maybe I need to come up with a different way. And this is where we're constantly trying to figure out how to make my move successful. And that's the trouble that I want to address, because it's not about making a successful move as I often deem it, of meaning you came around to what it is I wanted.
Well, that's funny, because we were just having a conversation this morning about some things at work, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to make a decision about how to approach something. And how did that conversation go? It was me making presumptions about how 15 different presumptions about, well, this is how
it's going to be met.
This is how it's the reaction. This is what the reaction is going to be.
And this was also a conversation you and I had while we were walking last night on a different subject that's still related to the subject we were talking about this morning.
Right. And it just keeps going on. And you go back to borrowing trouble, worrying mm-hmm. about what they're going to respond with, as opposed to just cleanly coming out. And like it comes down to, I need to write this down, right? I need mm-hmm. to write down my pros and cons, write down what my struggle is. And when you're having a hard time approaching it, having a hard time.
Well, I'm glad you tuned in today's episode, because this could be really helpful.
Right. So for me, it's going to be writing stuff down. Okay. I just totally cut you off, but it was cluing into me about struggles I'm having.
Because I'm sure there's an element of the audience going, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Can you just drill this down into some practical things? So I'm glad you said that, because yes, we can.
Okay.
So because the whole point of this segment is to talk about, we need to get better at observing the dynamic, particularly, and I'm using the person I'm up against as I'm going to call them an antagonist. I'm using Schnarch's language here from the manuscript he just released of Living at the Bottom of the Ocean. Mm-hmm. And so this is all in there. So I'm giving full credit to him on this, because it's really succinct and tactical. That's what I love about this manuscript. And so I need to get better at observing the moves throughout history that my antagonist makes. And then I need to ask some better questions, because most of the time we jump to, now, how do I get around those moves? Rather than, why don't I get a better, clear picture of their moves? Because then I can adjust accordingly better. Okay. And so in the extended content, we're going to talk about, how do I adjust accordingly?
Okay.
Right. But this is just about, how do I see my spouse's refusal to want to participate in oral sex, or my spouse's refusal to want to go this way with our marriage, or a house, or a job, or decoration, or kids and raising them, or faith, or right. Mm-hmm. So I want to get better at understanding what's the position my antagonist wants to get me into or out of, because they're making moves just like I am. It's like in the instance of the power play from oral sex episode a couple weeks back, that was her moves. If he can start to view it a little differently, he'll start to realize she's trying to move him off of his position. That's all she's doing. It's not congruent, because she might say something and then not follow through, but that's still a move.
Yeah.
And so if he can see that as, okay, what's the move she's really making here? I just need to get better at seeing it. And you can often use what they do to figure out what it is they want or don't want.
Do you have to focus on taking your emotion out of this?
You need to. It's a component of it, but it can't be more than a huge percentage of it. It's got to be, it's an element of it, because that's why we often don't see them, because our emotion takes over and I'm hurt or I'm frustrated, or rather than, wait, hold on. Objectively speaking, how do I just get a better picture of who I'm actually in relationship with here? Because they have a reason why they're doing things. And I want to try to get a little bit of a handle on why. That's the idea.
I think when we understand the why, it sure helps us see the whole picture and be able to deal with it better.
Well, if I understand the why, that sets up point number 3.
Okay.
Which is, what's the nature of our alliance? Are we really collaborative on this, or are we actually combative or collusive on it? Because most of the time, I think we can default to this idea of, no, we're collaborative in our marriage. But on this subject, we are not actually collaborative. But if I think that we are, I won't see that we're actually collusive or actually combative. Mm-hmm. Because when I see it as a different type of alliance, I then can change the way I'm contributing to that. Because a lot of couples, and I think I can say this, it's a broad brush stroke, but I think it still bears weight. A lot of couples are collusive when it comes to the gridlock issues in their sex life. I think they don't realize I am colluding to continue that problem.
So I think it's worth defining for people what colluding looks like.
Colluding is
why
largely,
it's good or bad or whatever.
Colluding is largely summed up in the idea of I will avoid addressing the issue, and it just continues to happen because I avoid addressing the issue. By my avoiding to address it, I collude to allow it to keep happening.
And I don't necessarily like the result.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I blame them still. Yeah. It's not me. I don't see my part in this.
Yeah.
Right. So if I need to get better at understanding what is the nature of our alliance, do we really have one? And if we do, is it combative, collusive, or collaborative, which ultimately we want to get to collaborative. But we both have to play our parts to get that. Then the other things I can do, just to kind of wrap this up before we pivot into what do I need to do. This is just about how to see my spouse better. The other thing I can do is, what is their view and map of me? How do they know me? Because a lot of times if I can if they can read me pretty well, then I know, hold on a sec, that's part of this dynamic that's creating a problem.
Yeah, and I being clean.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the whole idea of, am I being who I want to be? Am I staying within my circle and really analyzing me? Do I want to be married to me? That, that whole topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the last two components go perfectly together. One is, if I look at the history I have with this antagonist, what's their dominant response to most moves I make? Because most of us have a default response, if you think about it, right? So what's their dominant one? And what is that about? Is it really, there's a reason why they do it? Do they ask questions a lot? Do they act hurt? Do they go, well, I'm never enough? Or how could you think that? And they're overreactive. But if I can start to look at those patterns, I can dig underneath it and get beyond their reaction and get to the meaning under it to see, okay, that's the move they're making predominantly.
Yeah.
So how do I position myself better, which we'll talk about in a minute.
So I don't react poorly to it.
Right. And then the last one is, what's my style of responding to their moves most of the time?
Yeah.
Right. Do I show fears of not speaking up? Do I back off and not follow through with things I say I care about? Because all of that is becoming part of this dilemma that keeps this process happening.
Yeah.
And by keeping it happening, all I mean is we're not addressing it well. Because even addressing gridlock issues well, I need to land it here.
Okay.
Even addressing a gridlock issue well does not make it go away immediately.
Okay.
Right? Because it's still an issue of actions and behaviors. I need to position myself on how I'm approaching those things better before I have any opportunity to go through and get through it actually completely. If you want to hang on, if you remember the Academy already and the extended content, we're going to pivot. If you want more, you're going to want to go to smr.fm/academy, where we talk more about, now what do I do after I have a better view of my antagonist?